Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands.
upcoming tours,
And show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of June 26, 2023.
Welcome back as we enter the last week of June 2023. By Friday, it will be July, and I am reminded of Wallace Stevens. The summer night is like a perfection of thought. I have been deep in Dead and Company tour, and we are 2/3 of the way through that. And in honor of their final tour, we have some great Dead adjacent shorts for this week. We'll get into them in a bit. Plus our interview with Dizgo, great band. Amanda, how are you?
Hey, Kevin, I am good. I'm good. I took the week off because I'd seen about 2 weeks worth of shows the last few weeks. I'm doing well, though. I'm doing well. I'm excited for a new month. Let's do it.
I hear you with that. So we have Dizgo coming up. Great band. We'll get into some stuff with them about. They had a great review where they were compared to Dave Matthews Band on shrooms, and we asked about that. So we'll get into that in a minute. But I believe we're going to jump off as always with our
The top 3 stories of the week.
All right. All right, Kevin. Yep, got a few stories this week, one of which you had shared with me that you saw, and I thought this was a great one to lead off with, just simply because I think this one combines a couple of different topics that have come up over the last few months. So let's get into this. Rage Against the Machine, a couple of their members, Tom and Zach, are among over 100 artists who have basically said, we're going to boycott venues that are using facial recognition technology because they feel that that infringes on privacy. People going to concerts really should not be put into that kind of like level of scrutiny. And this had come up, Kevin, if you remember, at an MSG related event where there were some people who were not allowed into an event. There were some lawyers suing MSG, and I think this is going to become more of a topic as time goes by because that technology is becoming just so much more accessible.
right.
So wanted to get your thoughts on this. I mean, I personally can't imagine a world where I'm going to walk into anywhere and they're not going to know who I am. I just feel like it's already all over the place, but
Baked into the pie.
maybe I've just given up. I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, there's so much there. Facial recognition technology doesn't keep you safe. I'll say that off the top. But there's also the issue of privacy in public. When you go out in public, just like you could film a cop, you don't have an expectation of privacy. I think that it's just a way of marketing us as humans again more than anything. I don't see some deep state where they're going to have a database of fish fans. All of a sudden when you walk out of that venue, they've got ads for you for the next week because they know what you bought. Some places, Black Cat in DC, I know off the top of my head, and a couple others have vowed that they will never do this. So they may become a thing like that. But then what do you do with Fish? Fish's favorite venue is MSG, and MSG is going to do it.
Yep. Yeah. And, it's maybe my jaded perspective on this. Like you said, I'm not looking at it as something that's going to keep me safe. I don't really think of it other than when I get a letter in the mail that I maybe blew a red light or something. It's out there. And I guess for me, it's easy for me to say that because I'm not as much worried about the discrimination factor. I do think there are some really serious issues when that information could be used to identify people for something completely unrelated, of course, to their music going experience. So we do need to really sit down and understand this. But for some reason, I just don't know. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do much about it.
Are you thinking that the police will use it to find parole violees, maybe, and arrest warrants and things?
Yeah, and also I've read, and this is the more chilling part. Could could that information be used to identify people who were perhaps at different kinds of demonstrations, or maybe who were doing other kinds of boycotts or social justice work? is that something that could happen? Possibly. On the other side, could we use that to maybe help identify people who are, involved in hate crimes? So I don't know. I think it's all up to, honestly, the bigger picture of, where's this going to go? Um, I'm glad that artists are getting involved. I guess in my mind, there are probably some other things that maybe would be worth that time and energy, but I also get it. It's something that we need to be talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure this will come up, and it's all getting rolled in together. And Ticketmaster and these huge venues and Live Nation and how much control they have, and what are we willing to give up to go to a show?
Hmm. Right. And I guess that's really the issue too, is to me, it's much bigger than music. Maybe music is one entry point into this conversation. But like you said, this is already happening on a day-to-day basis, and most of us are not even aware of it. So to me, I guess I just feel like it's a much broader, bigger impact type of thing. But music also has a way of bringing politics into the conversation in a manageable method that people can wrap their head around. So for that, if nothing else, I'm glad that it might become a conversation. So yeah, so it's a good one. Thank you for sharing that, Kevin, too. I definitely appreciate that. All right, our next one, maybe a little bit, I want to say lighter, but actually that's kind of ironic because I'm about to talk about a 50-ton concert hall. So lighter in some ways. The Shed in Manhattan. I hadn't heard about this until just recently. This is basically a space that suspends itself, a concert hall that is suspended, looks like a spaceship, Epcot, a disco ball, the Death Star. Um, it's a place that is supposed to transport people to a new kind of listening experience, surrounding the audience with over 100 very meticulously arranged speakers. When you see pictures of this thing, it looks like any disco ball you've ever seen, obviously much bigger, but people actually go inside of this to hear music. And so this summer, this Sonic Sphere is going to host listening sessions that have been remixed specifically for this sound design. So there's some DJs playing, there are some live performances, again, that have kind of been designed specifically for this space. So, Kevin, one other thing I just wanted to mention, I thought, of course, this would be the first of its kind, but since 2021, the team that since 2021, the team that has conceptualized and built these has done that in France, UK, Mexico, including at Burning Man. So if anyone out there is a Burning Man person, you may have seen that. And so something to look out for, because I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in more music friendly cities, this is something that happens at some point. Um, but definitely check it out. Maybe we'll share some links online, Kevin, because it looks really cool. So if you're in New York, maybe something to go see. All right, Kevin. So that was our second story of the week. This last one here is maybe a little bit closer to home for our listeners, and I'm curious to see, Kevin, what memories you might have of Shakti. Is that a band that you had ever listened to from way back in the day?
I was aware. I never took a deep dive into John McLaughlin though. So
Yeah, the reason that this is a story is because they have released their first new studio album in over 45 years. And that just caught my eye because how often does that happen? I just saw an article highlighting bands that haven't released albums in over 5 years. So 45 years is quite a feat to be able to come back together. This one's called The Moment. And like you mentioned, guitarist, band leader John McLaughlin, and then Indian percussionist Zakir Hussain, as well as a bunch of collaborators who have been making music since 1973, early 1970s. They've played so many concerts, they've been together working. But basically, as they say, this album is a crystallization of 5 decades of love and dedication. I mean, you've got to be dedicated to make it that long and then put something out that you're super proud about. New compositions, performances. I'm a huge fan of John McLaughlin. The guitar trio is still one of my absolute favorite albums to put on just when I'm not sure what else to listen to. And so this was another lockdown project, from what I understand. They were all over the world. They used Dropbox to send files back and forth. They had a WhatsApp group to comment on things, and so it's pretty remarkable that they were able to do this.
That's fantastic. Now, I don't know enough about it. I guess this band is toured sporadically. I mean, I know John McLaughlin is all over the place with.
That's right. Yeah. So, they have through the years, and actually, they're going to be doing a series of tour dates in support of this moment, that new album, starting in Europe. And then they'll have a couple of stops before they get to the US. And on that US tour, they're going to have some friends, Bela Fleck, Bill Frisell, John Schofield, Jerry Douglas. So some of my favorites. And I'm really maybe hoping I can get to one of those. I think it's going to be a special thing, especially bringing all those players together.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds fantastic. You just made it all that more exciting for me with Bela and Bill and all those guys. Wow.
That's right. Yeah, so they're calling it Shakti 50. And actually, Shakti50.com is where you can go to see all the tour dates, where they're going to be and when. And I'll just kind of give a little preview here in case anyone is curious about that. So they have this tour going on starting actually this week in London. And then they're going to be coming to Boston in August, hanging out on the East Coast for quite a while, playing a bunch of different places. And let's see, Kevin, they're going to be in Virginia near you at the end of August, and then making their way out to the West Coast in September. So lots of opportunities to see that if someone's interested.
Very nice.
Yeah, so those are our stories for the week.
Yes, we will share some links about that in the show info for this. So this week we got Jake Evatt from Dizgo. He's the newest member of the band. But before we get into that, let me throw out to you what we got going on this week. We got to talk to Nigel Hall. Amanda did. I had my kid was graduating. I don't remember exactly. I had something big going on, so I had to miss that. Broke my heart. But we got Nigel Hall on Tuesday about feeling the vibe and what music means to him, and it's a really great little piece there. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're jumping into Grateful Dead kind of stuff. We got Chris Yunker on Wednesday talking about Garcia Project, how he approaches that, how he ended up in that. Thursday, we got Joe Marcinek on Dead Funk Summit. Friday, Papa Molly on Seven Walkers, which of course had Bill Kreutzmann. And then on Saturday, Gorilla Toss, Peter Negroponte about joining Sub Pop. So make sure that you check all that out. Seven Walkers, Bill Kreutzmann, Billy and the Kids are going to do 2 shows in New York and Baltimore. So I'm kind of excited for that. That should be interesting. Pier 6, again, is a fantastic venue. But let's jump into this Dizgo. This first thing, you had found an article, so I'm going to let you kick it off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So first, I have to say this was a really great chat with them, and I was excited to talk to them. So we got into some some interesting stuff. So talking about different things around vocals and Kevin, if I remember correctly, there was something about Dave Matthews Band. Do we want to reveal too much or just let everybody listen?
No. We don't want to reveal too much. But you found a great review, and Dave Matthews was mentioned, and they were really cool about it. They actually embrace it. So, all right, let's just jump in and check it out, and we'll see you on the other side.
You all had posted something on your Instagram about Dave Matthews Band on Shrooms. So I'm going to just like switch us in a different direction. I love this. Sure. Okay. So like one of the things that comes up for us a lot, obviously being in the jam band scene forever, I mean, is the whole idea of labels and categories and all of that. And I was looking at this quote. So Kevin, it's like a paragraph that's somebody's trying to explain, what your sound is. And imagine Dave Matthews Band on Shrooms was kind of where they ended up, I guess. Like, do you all? It seems like you have a good sense of humor about that. Does that ever get frustrating, or is it challenging? Do you feel like people want to put you in some kind of specific area?
Yeah, it's interesting. That was actually part of a whole write-up of the show. I think the blog is called Audiophileaholic. If you want to check it out, I really liked the review, and I thought that little piece was pretty funny. yeah, they compared our sound to basically Dave Matthews Band on mushrooms, and then immediately went away from that and said that it's something more. It's pieces of psych rock and jam and funk and jazz. And I think we did like a Weezer cover in that show. So sometimes we like to throw some monkey wrenches in there, keep people guessing. And I think it's just a picture of all the wide musical influences that any musician, especially in the jam scene, is going to have. We're going to take pieces of. I personally am like a Motown, funk, Quincy Jones kind of guy, and then you got all the Fish and the Dead, and you got the Miles Davis and stuff. Like, we're going to take pieces of everything and make it who we are, and anybody else is going to take any piece that they relate to, let's say that, and try to package it to be digestible so that they can relate to it or get other people to relate to it. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not the biggest fan of the Dave Matthews Band, but I thought it was funny, and they've enjoyed some huge success, so I'll take that all day.
You have 3 vocalists, so
Yeah.
maybe some of that plays into it. You mentioned Motown. I think we need more of Motown. Do you guys work specifically on the vocals?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've got a great friend of ours, Keith Harker, out of the Pittsburgh area, who's a vocalologist. He's a vocal coach, but also more of the science of how your vocal cords are working, how you can keep from tiring them out, and that sort of thing. It's fascinating. The guy's amazing.
That's neat.
And yeah, he works in the jam scene a lot, so he's worked with all your favorite bands probably. And yeah, he really taught us a lot. We haven't really followed up with a lot of lessons, but he unlocked some things for us and inspired us to work on that like it's an instrument. In a way, it's the purest instrument you have. It's the most direct source from your head to what noise you could be making, right? So it's really an important muscle to flex, an important skill to practice.
That's pretty
cool.
awesome. Yeah. No, I think that's like a really great thing to be able to focus on. When I think about that kind of stuff, like in terms of your live performances and studio stuff, like are you doing different things live to try to get a certain experience for people? Like, are you bringing different things that you learn from that to the stage versus what you might do like in a recording session?
Yeah, definitely, because it's a lot harder to nail the right kind of vocal things you want to do between the mix you have on stage or the wear and tear on your vocal cords from song to song or the room or whatever. It's so much easier to sit in front of a condenser mic and perfectly control your voice, or to take multiple cuts, and get it perfect. So it's a lot harder to stand live, your technique in front of a dynamic mic, how far away you are. If you're off axis a little bit, you're giving this kind of natural compression that maybe you want, maybe you don't. There's a lot to it that is going to come into play live that you wouldn't worry about in the studio. So you have to think of it differently. And I think jam bands are notorious for not giving a lot of attention to the vocals in the past. Like, really just, oh, you got to have lyrics, so we'll throw something in. But I think a lot of bands nowadays
It's funny.
are thinking of that differently and thinking of it as, like I said, like its own instrument.
Right. It's funny you say that because we did Connives yesterday and earlier today talked to Oregon Fairchild, which are both all instrumental trios. And we got into a little bit of the lyrics and, the importance of that. Who writes the lyrics in your band?
It's mostly a collaborative thing right now. I think in the past, I'd say Andrew Pickle. I just call him Pickle. I'll never call him Andrew. He's the guitarist and the front man of the band. I think he's written a lot of the lyrics and brought it to the table, but we've got lyrics that Kevin, the bass player, has written. I've written some songs and brought them to the table since I've joined. So right now it's a good, healthy back and forth, and we really appreciate that because that's a good way to refine get multiple people's opinions, not just nail it down one way, say this is how it's going to be. You get a little bit of a democratic process in there.
Yeah, so let's get back into this interview here. But before we do that, as always, want to remind everybody that we are on social media at All That Jam Pod, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, allthatjampod.com. And then, of course, everywhere you are getting your podcasts. And that includes not only the full episode like this one, but all of those shorter clips like Kevin mentioned. So make sure you're listening to everything, liking, subscribing, and please leave us some reviews. We really love that. Also, you'll be able to see all the information on our stories and the artists in show notes. So we'll provide links to everything there. So really appreciate everybody's support. But we have more of this interview with Dizgo. So let's get back into this. The second part here covers a couple different topics, talking about writing and working during quarantine, which Kevin, I feel like is maybe the one topic that we get into where we just tend to hear some really similar things. So excited to share that, some studio work, and then of course the tour and travel question, what that's all about and where they're going. So let's get back into that one. Is that the same kind of, because I'm looking, I know that you all had released a compilation album, right, in 2021. Speaking of quarantine,
Yeah.
I think it was called, right, the Quarantine Compilation.
Right.
I was curious, like how the decisions were made for that one.
Yeah, so with the quarantine and how bands were kind of reassessing how not just bands, but whole festivals and whole cultures of music were trying to stay viable. A lot of festivals were doing like live streaming events, right? If you remember. So Pigeons did a home fest in place of Dome Fest. Somebody did the live from out theirs, and there was lots of these things. Dizgo was involved with several of these, and then from those live multi-tracks, we selected, what we wanted to curate a live release, and that's how the quarantine compilation was born.
You guys working on anything now? Maybe that would be like coming out soon.
Well, right now we're playing 2 shows this weekend, and then that's the last of our winter tour right now, and we've got 2 or 3 months to. We've been talking about the next album. We've been planning out the songs, planning out the more big picture stuff, right? And we're going to try to use that time to put it together and record and start mixing the next studio project. And then hopefully that'll be ready to go in summer tour time, prime time, festival season, and we'll have a product to put out there.
So you're going into, can you name the studio where you're going?
No, we've not made those decisions yet. We're going to probably be doing a lot of it ourselves, to be honest. And then here and there where we need, we're going to reach out to friends. We have a couple friends in Bloomington who might have the right studio space we need, or might have the right outboard gear or mics or preamps or whatever. That kind of on a case-by-case basis, we will put it all together, kind of shiplap style.
Very nice, very nice. So, I guess you haven't recorded with them yet. So,
not on a studio project. I mean, we've been pumping out these live multi-tracks for Nugs and Bandcamp since my very first show, which at first was kind of a lot of pressure and it was crazy, but it's been great.
Right. You want to talk about the road? Like, how do you guys travel? Are you in a car with a trailer pulling you? You got a van?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that because it's a funny story where we travel with a passenger van and a trailer. And in the middle of festival season this year, I think we were going to Secret Dreams, which is at Legend Valley, is a big, amazing festival this year, I think in August. I went there a couple days early to meet up with some friends, or I went there at the beginning of the festival, and we weren't supposed to play till like the last night, like super late. I think we were actually the last set of the whole festival. And I'm there on that day. It's like maybe about to get dark. And luckily I hadn't really been drinking or anything, because the guys call me and they're like, hey, we're outside of Dayton, Ohio, and the band is toast.
Oh, no.
So yeah, we had to put together a plan. What we ended up doing, we had a friend at the festival who let us borrow his truck. He had brought a camper or something. We detached the camper, and I drove the truck to where they were on the side of the road in Dayton, and we put the trailer on the back of it, and we just left the van there, man.
It's still
We
there
drove
today.
back now with the whole crew pulling the trailer. Got to Secret Dreams just in time.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
we got the festival done. We played like for like 4 hours. It was ridiculous. They kept letting us play, kept telling us to play longer, and it was awesome. I still get people come up to us like, "Man, that Secret Dream set." Um, and then we came back for the van eventually. I hate to give the wrong idea that we just left it on the side of the road, but I mean, at the time, it was crazy. It was a huge time crunch, but we made it work. And since then, we've got a nicer, newer van that has been awesome. And hopefully, it doesn't end up on the side of the road in Dayton, Ohio.
It's fascinating. As bands get bigger and older, they go to buses and they start off in vans or cars. I think Oregon Fairchild said they had two minivans that they drag stuff behind them. So it's always a fascinating question to get into.
It is, especially for bands, that either they have so many members or they just really have very specialized equipment that they need to bring with them that you just can't rent, everywhere you go. It's such a commitment, and I just respect that so much.
It's amazing to me that bands can still do that. It used to be that a hotel room was $30. Hotel rooms are 200 now, and the bands aren't making, whatever, 7 times what they were in order to cover that difference of it being 700% more or whatever. Not good at math.
Exactly.
Don't yell at me.
It's true because I think maybe just because it's my perspective, I of course tend to think from a fan's point of view, right? Same thing. Hotels, everything is so much more expensive. Ticket prices have gone up, but without the bands, there's no shows to see. So taking care of them is, of course, so important.
Right, yeah, Dead Tour. You used to be able to do when it was $29.99 in Motel 6, anywhere you went in the country. Now it's, even if it's only $1.50, that's still so
Yeah,
much more money.
it is. And I don't want to become one of those, 40 mid 40s type person, get off my lawn. But it's true. In high school, I used to be able to work a regular part-time job and make enough money to go on summer tour. For me, it was Fish, without worrying about anything, and have a great time, and come back for school, whatever, and not feel like I just spent $20,000 just to eat, and go see some music. But yeah, it's just different now. So happy to have had those memories. But man, I think about my son and all those kids out there. It's going to be a different world for them.
It is. It is. I worked my senior year at the local sub shop, and 40 hours a week. I went and did the whole tour for Grateful Dead that summer. I mean, and anyway,
All
I,
right, yeah, we could go on this one
uh,
for a while.
get off my lawn. All right, enough with that. Let's you got something a little bit different for us today.
Yeah, Kevin, I'm sure by this point, just about everybody out there has seen either videos or descriptions of the massive hailstorm that hit Red Rocks recently. And I can tell you, being here in Colorado, we did not get exactly the same weather that they did out in Red Rocks, but we got plenty of it just the same. And it got me thinking about rain, being outside, at festivals and shows. And while there's no rain jacket that's going to protect you from, watermelon sized hail or whatever it was at Red Rocks, I was curious, rain jackets, this tends to be kind of a perennial conversation, right? Because nothing is worse than getting completely soaked and knowing you still have days or even hours left to be outside. So I found, did a little research and found some of the best rain jackets out there because I know I need a new one. I don't know about you, and I never know what to buy. And so, what I'm going to do, Kevin, is post these for everybody. But interestingly, it's not always about these brands that we hear all about. And this reminds me of a question we did early on about what's your favorite shoe or sneaker to wear at a show. And so I'm going to see what people think about these, but just to kind of, put it out there, there are protective rain jackets. So if anyone's really concerned, or maybe you're going to shows here in Colorado where you never know what the weather's going to do, check out online. We're going to provide that information. And if you're in the market, you can maybe find one here, or let us know what your go-to is, because I never seem to buy the right one. So I was curious.
I'm a trash bag guy.
You know what? You get some of those contractor bags. Those things are tough.
I'd never think of it. Like, where do we get? Right after quarantine when Fish played Hershey, it poured the one night, and I was just, here I am, soaking wet.
Oh, I've just made horrible decisions, or no decisions at all. Some of those include going to Red Rocks with nothing. And I call it my overstoked island moments, where I'm just so happy to be there. I forget absolutely everything that I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
So, it's definitely something that happens to me, especially after a couple of drinks. So, if you're out there and you're the same, maybe we can offer you some options.
There you go. So with that, I'm going to say, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you next week, Amanda.
All right. Have a great weekend.